Just this past Memorial Day weekend, the Camp and Yager families gathered at a Houston hotel to kick off summer with a pool party. After drying off to grab snacks, 2-year-old Annelise Camp wandered back to the pool area and fell into the water after removing her life jacket. Minutes later, her 12-year-old cousin noticed her at the bottom of the pool and pulled her out. Somebody called 911 while another family member immediately started CPR. EMTs rushed the toddler to Texas Children's Hospital, where they restarted her heart after an hour of life-saving measures. Today, Annelise remains there connected to machines, while her family fights for more time, transfers, and further options like hyperbaric therapy. The hospital says it's exhausted all medically viable options, but has no imminent plans to stop care. But let's zoom out for a second. If this were 100 years ago, 200 years ago, this would not be a conversation. No CPR, no ventilators, no ICU miracles. Technology has only recently flipped the script. Today, stories like this force us to ask uncomfortable questions. When is somebody truly dead in the information age? Thanks for stopping by NPC Overrider, where we challenge mainstream source code to develop independent thought, one user story at a time. Grab a drink, and let's check out the latest programming. Block 1. Life Tech. Not so long ago, when your heart or lungs stopped, the jig was up. Men started digging, and women prepared casseroles. But with modern technology, we now debate the very definition of death. We can keep lungs breathing and hearts pumping long after the brain goes offline. The question is, who pays? Who decides? And what would the patient want versus what the family wants, versus what the hospital wants? What does long-term care look like? In 1968, Harvard introduced, quote, brain death as the irreversible loss of all brain function, including the brainstem. By 1980, most states had passed the Uniform Determination of Death Act, a statute that similarly defines when somebody is no longer with us. Technology saves lives, but it also creates ethical uncertainties. Block 2. The gray areas and hopeful cases. Annelise has shown signs of progress so far, but long-term care could mean months or years of rehab, feeding tubes and possible ventilators, and or significant disabilities. But also, Annelise could wake up tomorrow and make a full or near full recovery. For example, in 2017, 2-year-old Joy Loboda also nearly drowned in a swimming pool. She went for about 30 minutes with no heartbeat and was placed in a medically induced coma. Yet she made a near full recovery, going as far as to make swimming lessons part of her recovery, if you can believe that. Something similar also happened to 2-year-old Eden Carlson in 2016, who survived after remaining submerged underwater for 15 minutes. She made a near full recovery after hyperbaric oxygen therapy came through. And just last year, 8-year-old Dylan Smith made a near full recovery after suffering cardiac arrest and brain injury after nearly drowning in a Florida pool following a contest with his sister to see who could stay underwater the longest. But all cases pose uncomfortable questions. With each case being different, it's hard to apply a single standard to everybody. Who decides? Doctors might declare brain death, families can fight it out in court or seek transfers, or even claim religious exemptions. Some question whether brain death itself is a myth. It's currently the legal standard, but critics like Dr. Heidi Klessig, who outlines in her book The Brain Death Fallacy, argue that tests don't always prove total irreversible loss, and hospitals might be rushing to judgment to free up hospital beds or harvest organs, which may yield profits for the hospital. ICU care costs thousands daily. Who decides who gets a bed and who doesn't? And we think about how AI fits into all this. Are we going to end up in an iRobot situation where the computer decides who lives and who doesn't, or who's alive and who isn't? But it's not all doom and gloom. Technology gives humans more second chances than ever. We only hear of these high-profile cases like Annelise's. The success stories we talked about, not so much. Block 3, other notable cases. But for better or for worse, people have been arguing the definition of death in court and the public square for decades now. In 1975, 21-year-old Ann Quinlan fell into a persistent vegetative state after mixing alcohol and tranquilizers. Her parents went to court fighting to remove her ventilator, saying she wouldn't want to live like that. They won in a landmark ruling. To everyone's surprise, Karen started breathing on her own and lived another 9 years with a feeding tube. In 1983, 25-year-old Nancy Cruzan was in a terrible car crash and ended up in a permanent vegetative state. Her family spent 7 years fighting to remove her feeding tube, saying Nancy told them she would not want to live that way. The case went to the U.S. Supreme Court, which ruled that people have a constitutional right to refuse life-sustaining treatment. She died 12 days later after they removed her feeding tube. Perhaps the most popular case is the Terri Schiavo case. In 1990, 26-year-old Terri Schiavo suffered cardiac arrest and ended up in a persistent vegetative state. Her husband wanted the feeding tube removed, once again arguing that she wouldn't want to live that way. Her parents fought tooth and nail to keep her alive. The battle dragged on through the courts, the Florida legislature, Congress, and even pulled in the president. It became a media firestorm. Her feeding tube was eventually removed in 2005, and she passed away 13 days later. In 2013, 13-year-old Jahi McMath was declared brain dead after complications from routine tonsil surgery, of all things. Her family fought in court on religious grounds and got her transferred to New Jersey and kept her alive on a ventilator for nearly 5 years. She showed some bodily functions during that time before passing away in 2018, including menstruation cycles. The case blew up the debate on whether brain death is always the final word. Now for a quick admin break. If you like what we're doing here, please do us a solid and set the like button to true, and consider joining the development team by hitting the subscribe button. Now let's get into the final patch. Now all this stuff is new territory for humans, relatively speaking, and it's tough to always have the right answers for these cases, as they're all unique. But in the case of Annelise Camp, she's only 2 years old, and it's far too early to make a call. It hasn't even been 3 weeks. As her family says, she just needs time. Texas Children's Hospital has requested transfers to 24 other facilities, but nobody has accepted Annelise as far as I can tell. A hearing was scheduled for 6/11 to determine next steps for her medical treatment, and I'm recording this on June 12th. I haven't been able to find any updates from official outlets as of yet, but according to an ex-post from Dr. Heidi Klessig, a judge ordered the hospital to continue life-sustaining treatment for another 2 weeks to secure a transfer. The case continues to draw attention in social and mainstream media. Texas AG Ken Paxton and Representative Steve Toth have publicly supported the Camp family. But here's how you can get involved and support Annelise and her family. There is a Give, Send, Go active for recovery costs right now, but if you're not in a position to donate, you can hit the pray button to let the family know you're thinking of them. If you feel so inclined, you can write respectful letters to the Texas Children's Hospital and ask them to give Annelise the time she needs and deserves. I'll leave the email addresses in the release notes. And be sure to keep an eye out for updates following the 6/11 hearing. But don't wait until it's you on the table. Have those tough conversations with loved ones and decide who would want what, and put it in writing. Create or update your advance directive or living will, and be specific on what you would want after considering these cases. Check your state's brain death laws and see what's on the books currently. And avoid leaving it to your family members to battle over what you would want or wouldn't want. Well, that's going to do it for this version of NPC Overrider. I'm your lead engineer, Greg. But what do you think? How long is too long to keep somebody alive on a machine? What does alive even mean? What does death mean? What if it were you? Would you want your family to cut the cord and move on? Or keep pushing for hope that you'll wake up one day? Would you even want to wake up? Open up a ticket in the comments section and let's chat. But for now, we're going to log out and grab another beer. Thanks so much for stopping by. Have a good one.